All right, we're diving straight into a scene of pure, unfiltered chaos today. We're going to break down the anatomy of a monster attack, piece by horrifying piece, just using the dialogue we hear from right inside the action. So let's get into it, because this thing starts fast.
See? There's no buildup, no slow, creeping dread. Nope, we are dropped right into the thick of it. The very first thing we hear is this desperate cry for help, a raw confirmation that something terrible is happening. This isn't a warning, it's a terrifying new reality. So, that brings us to our first part, terror on the island. This is all about that initial shock, that moment where your thinking brain just shuts off and pure survival instinct takes over. All the rules, all the order, it just completely disappears.
In these first few moments, language just kind of breaks down. When you're under that much stress, your brain doesn't have time for complex sentences. It all gets stripped down to the absolute basics. This isn't a conversation, it's a command. Run, run, run becomes the only thing that matters, like a frantic beat in the soundtrack of all this chaos.
And here, we get a little window right into what these people are feeling. It's not just that they're physically running, their minds are completely overloaded. And that phrase, scared to death, that's not them being dramatic. It is probably the most literal, accurate way to describe what they are going through right then and there.
And you could hear how it gets worse, right? How the language just starts to fragment. Go quickly, go away, run. These aren't calm instructions, they're just bursts of pure panic. It shows a total loss of control. What we're hearing is fear spreading like a virus. Every shout just makes the next person even more terrified, and it just spirals.
But what are they running from? Let's move on to part 2. Because we're about to go from a faceless terror to a very specific and very ancient predator. It's time to meet the monster.
And boom, there it is. This isn't some made-up creature. It has a name, Varanus priscus, the giant monitor lizard. And giving it a real scientific name does something fascinating. It yanks this horror out of the world of myths and slams it right into biological reality. We're talking about a real-life prehistoric hunter, basically a living fossil let loose.
With that one line, the whole game changes. The thing they were running from, the unseen threat, is now seen. This is that moment where this vague, abstract fear becomes a very real, very physical thing they have to face. The panic isn't just about a danger anymore. It's about escaping the jaws of that thing.
Okay, so now that they know what they're up against, the vibe starts to shift. Panic slowly, just slowly, starts turning into a plan. And that brings us to part 3, a minefield gambit. We're about to see the survivors try to fight back with a pretty desperate, high-stakes strategy.
Now, what's really interesting here is that out of all the screaming, we hear this one clear voice with a purpose. This line is huge. It signals a shift from that pure panic, that fight-or-flight reaction, to actual strategy. It's the first real sign of human ingenuity starting to push back.
And what a plan it is, let's just break this down, because it is wild. First, they're going to set off a berry bomb, whatever that is, as some kind of distraction. Step 2, they plan on using a serpent to distract or tangle up the main monster, which they're calling the superstar. Okay. And then, the grand finale. Lure this superstar into a minefield. This is just an incredibly risky, almost unbelievable plan.
But look, having a plan on paper is one thing. Trying to pull it off while a giant lizard is on the loose? That's something else entirely. Part 4 is all about the human side of this, the crushing pressure of what might be their one and only shot.
So all that pressure, the survival of the entire group, it all lands right on one person, Jay. And listen to those words, it's not a chance, it is the last chance. The stakes just could not be any higher, and you could feel the incredible weight of that responsibility right in that one sentence.
And you can just feel the clock ticking, can't you? The plan is happening, the predator is getting closer, and every single second is critical. This isn't some calm, cool execution of a plan, it's a mad dash against time. They're trying to do 2 impossible things at once: set a trap for a monster and evacuate a crowd of terrified people.
And that brings us to the final, nail-biting question. The plan's in motion, the hero's in place, but is it going to be enough? Let's look at these last moments and ask, are we looking at an escape or an extinction?
And for just a split second, you get this flicker of hope. It's a statement, sure, but it's almost like a prayer. They're trying to convince themselves just as much as each other that survival is still an option.
It's that classic human spirit, right? That refusal to give up, even when you're staring into the abyss.
And then this. This just lays it all out, the absolutely brutal contrast. On one side, you have the words, the desperate hope, and on the other, you have the stark reality. The very last sound isn't a cheer, it's not relief, it's just this long, horrifying scream. The hope is just completely swallowed by the terror.
So, this is where we're left, just hanging. We have a crazy plan, a flash of hope, and then screams. The story just cuts off, leaving us stuck in that final, terrifying moment. It really makes you wonder, was there ever any real hope? Or was their fate sealed the moment they set foot on that island?